Okay. So just finish that point off the captain made. Vitally important, folks. Don't get wrapped up in the noise. Sit back, watch the big shifts. The point is, and I'll say this again later in the show after this presentation. One of the major objectives is for the people to lose trust in everybody and everything, except the Almighty through Christ and themselves. And that has flow-on effects, downstream effects to how a country is governed, etc., etc., etc. Because we've got this emotional attachment to people, to organizations that we want to trust. We can't. And so that's why this is all very key. But anyway, let's now move on to this. Now, you remember the coloured hats I put up some time ago to break down an understanding of the demographics, not so much demographics, but the groupings of people with which we're dealing. And these people come from all the demographics and psychographics, but they're grouped differently. I'll give you a quick refresher on what they all stand for. So first up, we've got the black hats. They're the bad guys. With the white hats, the good guys. Now, for those new to the show, new to this concept, in the old black and white cowboy movies on TV, before we had color, so the audience could identify who was evil and who was not, all the bad cowboys wore black hats, and the good guys, like the Lone Ranger, wore white hats. Hence the origin of that particular term. Now, between those two is the rest of us. Let's go through them. The red hats. The red hats are the useful idiots. These are completely amoral individuals that will do whatever is required of them, and they will do it for money or for their satanistic god. That's literally the only two options. If you have a look at the Committee of 300, the rules by which they operate, for want of a better word, it's either their god, Satan, or Mammon. That's it. And these are the people that'll fly the jets, drop chemtrails, poisoning people, poisoning animals, poisoning the land. The bankers that'll just shift money, they don't care how they'll make sure the money gets from point A to point B. They get paid handsomely for it. They have no soul. They will do whatever they need to do. Now, what's going to shift a red hat? Red hats only move fine. Now, moving on. The orange hats. Orange hats believe everything that happens on TV. Now, this is a combination of good people and bad people, but they trust the television. They trust that box in the corner. Whatever it says must be true. So what shifts orange hats? Evidence of crime. Now, which way it shifts them towards the light or the dark is different for who they are. But what shifts them is evidence of crime. Bear that one in mind. Next. The yellow hats. The yellow hats also believe everything is in front of them, but they actually don't care. These are the congenitally selfish, self-interested, don't give a rat's for anybody else. Hooray for me and to hell with you. And that includes their children. They would rather make their mortgage payments than keep their children safe. These are, man, to describe these people is quite extraordinary. The amoral red hats is one thing. These people are immoral. They know what's right and wrong, but they just choose to make the wrong decisions. They're the yellow hats. What moves the yellow hats? The fear of staying where they are is greater than the fear of the unknown, because these people never want to shift. They will accept a smaller and smaller world imposed by anybody, as long as they get to sit there and make their mortgage payments and live in their tiny world. Let's put it this way, they do not understand the statement or the question, am I my brother's keeper? They don't care. They don't even care for their kids. But what will shift them is the pain of staying from where they are is greater than the fear of the unknown. That's what shifts them. Now, the white hats know all this. Next, the green hats. The green hats, they've woken up. They know something's not right. Something deep inside of them has said, no, something's not right. They're not exactly sure, but they're looking around. They're trying to find out what the situation is and what they want to do about it. So some of these people have come from the yellow hats, not so much from the yellow hats, from everywhere else, have woken up and said something's wrong. They've applied their own discernment, their own judgment. They have a sense of right and wrong, and they're looking at what's next. The blue hats, that's every Anon out there. That's AustraliaOne. It's Capt Kyle and Kelly. It's all those out there who know there's something wrong and are willing to do what must be done to ameliorate the situation, whether it's providing information, whether it's helping out in their local community, handing out food, or it doesn't matter what it is. The blue hats are the fighters that are willing to do something to fix the problem, to whatever degree. to whatever degree. So they're the hats. And we broke that down previously and gave percentages, but we haven't got percentages now because it's moving very quickly. But I can tell you, I'll run now through where they are psychologically, let's say. In the face of all of this evidence that is now coming out, where are these people? So let's go. Let's start with the black hats down the bottom, the deep state, call them whatever you want to. Right, they've been publicly removed. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, the Rothschilds, for example, they're Rothschilds and up, let's say, Committee of 300, the families, they don't sell their properties. And they had a garage sale, a fire sale a year or two ago, if you remember. So they're being removed publicly. And for those who have eyes to see and ear to hear, you know exactly what's going on there. There's also public repudiation now to these people. The word is getting out. We don't like these so-called elites, those that believe they are better than us, those who believe that they have the right to dictate how we live our lives, which is such an anti-Christian perspective. And this is why Christianity is key, because everyone is equal in the sight of God, no matter how miserable their condition. We are all equal in the sight of God. We all have the sovereign right gifted to us by God to live our life how we choose, so as long as we don't interfere with others. But he allows that too, in order for people to learn lessons. But that's the difference. So the public is now repudiating all the elites, these black hats at the very top. And there are now public demands for justice. The rumble is starting to grow into a roar because people are beginning to understand, no, this cannot continue any further. And this is what the white hats need of us. This is what DJT needs of the planet. He needs the people to stand up and say, enough, no more, it's done, it's over. So that's the black hats. Now, the red hats, the useful idiots that work for the black hats. Public exposure of a coordinated conspiracy. So what's being shown about the red hats is, even within the red hats, they're understanding, my God, this coordinated conspiracy in which we're involved. And it doesn't matter whether it's biker gangs, the police, the politicians, the judges, the military, the adrenochrome production, the rest of it. This coordinated conspiracy is now being publicly exposed, and we are part of it. This is what the red hats are saying. Some of them. And they're now living in, are aware of the removal of cats. They are frightened. Some of them, of the red hats, are still out there doing their work because they're completely unaware, because the truth is being concealed from them. And these are the low-level useful idiots. And I'm talking about senior government officials, for example, because they're just doing their thing, and they are not allowed to, or even junior government officials, junior military, they're not allowed to be aware of this. So they are monitored. They know they are monitored. And if they are checking the wrong email messages, if they're reading the wrong sites online, social media sites, they will be targeted and dispatched. So they're literally unaware of it. They're just happily bubbling along, doing their work. Moving on. Now, the yellow hats and the orange hats are having the same response. So I've grouped them for the purpose of this. They are both shocked by the exposure of what's happening. The truth is out, and they didn't want to hear it. Now, you either fight the truth, you either freeze into indecision, or you run from it. So this is the normal fight or flight scenario when challenged. There's a center one called freezing, because they don't know what to do. Deer in the headlights. The classic case, everyone's seen it. The deer in the headlights, it stands there staring at the car, cannot comprehend what is about to occur, and so it doesn't know what to do. Now, the yellow hats and the orange hats don't fight for the truth. So that option is off the table for them. It's not in their nature to fight. Some of them might, and they slide across to the green hats. That's a small minority, because the orange and the yellow hats, they're the true believers. The TV must be correct, and they will die in a ditch to defend that. So most of them are frozen into indecision, and some are running away. No, hands on the ears. No, it can't be true. It can't be true. It's not true. It's not. And they're digging themselves deeper into a hole. They're currently scrambling for information, trying to figure out that for self-preservation. This is the majority of the orange and yellow hats. For example, their financial status. These are the people that spend an inordinate amount of time worrying about, should I invest in silver or gold, or get off the metals and get back into my stocks and bonds? Now, there's nothing wrong with establishing a financial basis for your future and your family's future. There's nothing wrong with it. But in light of all of that's going on in the planet, that's being revealed, and we'll talk about that later in the show, I hope, the level of revelation out there in terms of the grotesque and depraved behavior of their elected officials and the rest, they are still worrying. They're spending, of their 24 hours a day that we all get given equally, they are spending an inordinate amount of time worrying about the money. They've failed the test. The whole COVID thing in the first place was a massive IQ test that one clever Canadian woman once described it. It's just an IQ test, and a lot of them failed. And instead of taking that lesson, what are they doing now? Same thing. They're worrying about things they shouldn't worry about in terms of the proportion of their time. So they're the yellow hats. Now moving on. The green hats, they're also shocked by the exposure, because this is going to shock everybody. And even those of us who believe that we've seen it all, we know it all, nothing's going to shock me, it will. They're searching for information. Their default response, though, is different to the yellow and orange hats. These are people that are praying for and helping victims. They're praying for themselves and their family. They're praying for their community. They're praying for their country. But they're also out there helping the victims and helping them get through. These are the big-hearted people. They're brilliant, and that's their default setting. Then the blue hats. The blue hats, as I said, these are the Anons, these are the freedom fighters, these are the people on social media, these are the people standing on the side of the road trying to wake people up. They're providing real leadership, not just for the moment, but for the future. They spend a lot of time sharing the news, but also preparing for what's coming next. They are helping to others to wake up. This is they know that if they can build an army, that the solution will come quicker. And they're also trying to avoid the "I told you so." As strong as that desire might be, the real blue hats aren't rubbing it in people's faces. These two, like the green hats, have big hearts and great understanding of what's going on. And so they're not expecting apologies. They're just out there doing their job. That's part of the digital army that Mike Flynn talks about. That's the A1 people. That's the Anons that are tirelessly out there sharing. That trawl through dewdrops, this magnificent group of good human beings with big hearts and big goals that are the foundation of our success. And by our, I mean the planet's. White hats couldn't have done it without the blue hats. And then you got the white hats. They're just doing their job. They are dismantling globalist control. They are establishing, in some cases, re-establishing sovereign nation control. If you want the big picture of what they're after, that's it. And they are very closely monitoring worldwide reactions as this operation continues. So I hope they get a screenshot of that and you can have a look at that in your own time. I hope that helps explain the groupings of people where we are. Here's the best part. You get to choose where you live. You get to choose. And there are consequences for which hat you decide to wear. People like the Captain and Kelly and us at A1, we've been blue hats from the beginning. And it's a long, tedious, tiring job, but it's one we relish. We've been burdened with this wonderful responsibility, and that's why we keep going. You can join us at any time, folks. I mean it. You can join the Captain. You can join A1. You can just do it on your podcast. Get on TikTok. Give the black hats and the cabal a mouthful. It all contributes. You get to choose. Okay, that's it, Captain.